I stood on Jordan's front porch with my single suitcase, heart pounding as I rang the doorbell. After 30 years working as a private assistant, I was finally retired. My son had invited me to stay with him and his wife Camille while I figured out my next steps. The door swung open, and Jordan's face didn't light up the way I'd hoped. "Mom, you're early," he said, barely looking at me. His voice carried an edge I didn't recognize. "The flight got in ahead of schedule," I replied, trying to smile. "I'm so excited to finally spend time with you both." Jordan stepped aside reluctantly. The house was beautiful. Marble floors, expensive furniture, floor-to-ceiling windows. I'd helped him buy this place, though he didn't know the full extent of my financial support over the years. Camille appeared from the kitchen, her pregnant belly showing slightly under her designer dress. She glanced at my modest clothes and worn suitcase with barely concealed disgust. "So you're moving in permanently?" she asked coldly. "Just temporarily until I find my own place," I said softly. Jordan crossed his arms. "Actually, Mom, we need to talk about that. You can't just assume you can live here rent-free forever. We have expenses." The next morning, I woke early and made breakfast for everyone. Camille's mother, Dr. Evelyn Pierce, had arrived to help with pregnancy preparations. She swept into the kitchen wearing a designer pantsuit, her gray hair perfectly styled. "And you are?" she asked, looking me up and down. "I'm Lena, Jordan's mother," I said, extending my hand. She ignored it. "Oh, the maid who raised him." Her voice dripped with condescension. "Actually, I worked as a private assistant for—" "Same thing," Evelyn interrupted. "Camille, darling, you'll need a proper nanny when the baby comes. Someone with actual credentials, not just this." Camille nodded eagerly. "Mother's right, we need professional help." I felt my cheeks burn but kept my voice steady. "I'd love to help with the baby. I raised Jordan on my own." Evelyn laughed harshly. "Raising one child doesn't make you qualified to handle my grandchild. If you want to stay here, you'll need to contribute financially. The nanny alone will cost $3,000 a month." Jordan avoided my eyes. "She's right, Mom. You need to start pulling your own weight." My hands trembled slightly as I set down my coffee cup. These people had no idea who they were talking to. That evening, Jordan cornered me in the guest room. "Mom, I've been thinking. Maybe you should go back to work. Mrs. Henderson down the street needs a live-in housekeeper. It would be perfect for someone your age." I stared at him in disbelief. "Jordan, I just retired after 3 decades of working. I thought you wanted me here." "I want you here, but you have to earn your keep," he said impatiently. "Camille's stressed about the baby, and having you around doing nothing isn't helping." Evelyn appeared in the doorway. "There's also a lovely senior facility in town. They offer work programs where residents can earn their room and board. Very dignified for someone in your situation." The way she said, "your situation," made my blood boil. They thought I was some broke old woman with nowhere to go. "You know what?" I said quietly, my voice barely above a whisper. "Maybe it's time I told you about Vivienne Sinclair." Jordan frowned. "Who's that?" I looked directly into his eyes. "My last employer. The woman who changed everything." The room fell silent. I could see the curiosity in their faces, mixed with confusion. I sat down on the bed, my mind drifting back 15 years. Vivienne Sinclair had been different from my other employers. She was a widow worth over $50 million, but she treated me like family, not hired help. When Vivienne was diagnosed with cancer, I became more than her assistant. I was her companion, her confidant, her closest friend. I held her hand through chemotherapy sessions and made sure she wasn't alone during her final days. "Lena," she'd whispered on her deathbed, "you've given me more love and loyalty than my own children ever did. They only call when they want money." Her lawyers had contacted me a week after the funeral. Vivienne had left me something her greedy children knew nothing about. A trust fund worth exactly $8.2 million, hidden from the family who'd neglected her. But I'd never told anyone. Not Jordan, not my ex-husband Victor, nobody. I wanted to see how people would treat me when they thought I had nothing. I wanted to know who truly cared about Lena Ward, not Lena Ward's money. Now, sitting in this guest room being treated like a burden, I had my answer. Back in the present, Jordan was growing impatient. "Mom, what does some old lady have to do with anything? You're stalling." I stood up slowly, looking at this man I'd raised from infancy. the man I'd sacrificed everything for. Jordan, I've watched you your entire life, watched you grow up, succeed, become the person you are today. Yeah, and I'm grateful, but are you? The question came out sharper than I intended. Because right now, you're talking to me like I'm some stranger who wandered in off the street. His face darkened. Don't be dramatic, Mom. We're being practical. You can't just retire and expect everyone else to take care of you. He kicked my suitcase, sending it sliding across the floor. I have a future to think about, a baby coming, a wife to support. I can't carry dead weight. The words hit me like a physical blow. Dead weight. That's what my son thought of me. I stared at him for a long moment, then spoke words I'd never planned to say. You know what, Jordan? You're not even my biological son. The color drained from his face. What? You heard me. Jordan sank into the chair by the window, his face pale. What do you mean I'm not your biological son? I sat back down, my hands folded in my lap. 28 years ago, I was walking home from the grocery store. I heard crying coming from behind Murphy's bakery. There was a cardboard box by the dumpster, and inside was a baby, you. His mouth opened and closed wordlessly. You were so small, so sick. The doctor said you had a severe heart defect. You needed surgery immediately, and even then, your chances weren't good. I remembered that night like it was yesterday. The tiny blue-faced infant who'd stolen my heart instantly. I was only 22, barely making ends meet as a single woman. Your father, Victor, he wanted nothing to do with a sick baby that wasn't even his. He left me the day after I brought you home from the hospital. Jordan's hands were shaking. You're lying. I gave up everything for you, Jordan. My marriage, my youth, my health. I worked 3 jobs to pay for your medical bills. I slept in hospital chairs for months while you fought for your life. The adoption papers were in my safety deposit box, along with all his medical records, proof of the life I'd saved, the love I'd poured into this ungrateful man. And this is how you repay me. Jordan stood up abruptly, his face red with anger. So what? You want a medal for doing what any decent person would do? No, I said calmly. I want basic respect from the son I raised. Evelyn had been listening from the hallway. She stepped into the room with a smug expression. Well, that's touching, but legally speaking, this house belongs to Jordan and Camille. You have no claim here. I looked at her carefully. Is that so? Absolutely. They're the ones on the mortgage, the deed, everything. Jordan nodded eagerly. That's right. This is our house, Mom. Our rules. I stood up and picked up my suitcase, my voice deadly quiet. You know what, Jordan? You're absolutely right. This is your house. I walked toward the door, then turned back. But here's something you might want to think about. Who do you think provided the down payment? Who co-signed the loan when your credit wasn't good enough? Who's been quietly helping with the mortgage payments for the past 3 years? His face went white. What? Maybe I'll just take back what's mine? I checked into the Belridge Grand Hotel, the most expensive place in town. The marble lobby and crystal chandeliers felt like a palace after Jordan's cold hostility. In my suite, I finally opened my banking app for the first time in months. $8,247,650. The number still felt surreal, even after all these years. Vivian's gift had grown significantly thanks to smart investments and compound interest. I called Margaret Chen, the best real estate agent in the area. Mrs. Chen, this is Lena Ward. I'd like to start looking at properties immediately. Of course. What's your budget range? Let's say up to $2 million for now. There was a pause. Certainly. I'll have my associate Aubrey Pierce show you some listings tomorrow. Aubrey Pierce, Camille's cousin. How perfect. That night, I ordered room service and sat by the window overlooking the city. For the first time in years, I felt free. No one demanding anything from me. No one treating me like a burden. My phone buzzed with a text from Jordan. Mom, can we talk? I think there was a misunderstanding. I deleted it without responding. He'd had his chance to talk. Now it was time for action. The next morning, I dressed in my usual simple clothes, comfortable jeans and a plain sweater. No jewelry, no designer labels. I wanted to see how Aubrey would treat someone she thought couldn't afford her time. The Prestige Realty office was all glass and chrome. Aubrey Pierce sat behind a massive desk, her blonde hair perfectly styled, wearing what looked like a $1,000 suit. She glanced up when I entered, and I saw the immediate dismissal in her eyes. Can I help you? she asked coldly. I'm Lena Ward. I have an appointment to view properties. She looked me up and down with obvious disdain. Properties in what price range? 1 to 2 million. Aubrey laughed, actually laughed. Ma'am, I think there's been a mistake. Perhaps you'd be more comfortable with our budget division. They handle properties under 200,000. Other agents in the office were starting to stare. I could feel my cheeks burning, but I kept my voice steady. I specifically requested properties in the 1 to 2 million range. Look, lady, I don't know what game you're playing, but you're wasting my time. Security. The office manager, a kind-faced woman named Helen, hurried over. What's the problem here? This woman is trying to waste everyone's time pretending she can afford million-dollar properties, Aubrey said loudly. Helen looked embarrassed. Mrs. Pierce, perhaps we should. No, I interrupted calmly. I reached into my purse and pulled out my bank statement, along with a pre-approval letter from my private banker. Here are my financials. Helen's eyes widened as she scanned the documents. Oh my, Mrs. Ward, I'm so sorry. These are impressive credentials. Aubrey snatched the papers, her face going from smug to shocked in seconds. This can't be real. I assure you it is, I said quietly. Now, would you like to show me some properties, or should I find someone more professional? The entire office had gone silent. Helen cleared her throat. Aubrey, I think you owe Mrs. Ward an apology. Aubrey's face was red with embarrassment and anger. I'm not apologizing to anyone. This is obviously fake. Helen's expression hardened. Mrs. Pierce, you're relieved of duty. Please clean out your desk. I watched as Aubrey gathered her things, muttering angrily under her breath. As she passed me, she hissed, "This isn't over." Helen turned to a young woman sitting quietly at a corner desk. Jenna, would you be willing to help Mrs. Ward today? The commission on 2 luxury properties would change Jenna's life. Sometimes kindness finds its own reward. Within a week, I'd purchased 2 beautiful villas in Silverwood Estates, the most exclusive neighborhood in town. Both were gorgeous, but I only needed one. The other was an investment and a statement. The same day I got the keys, a delivery truck arrived at my hotel. Jordan had sent flowers, an enormous, expensive arrangement with a card that read, "Mom, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. We need to talk. Love, Jordan." I looked at the bouquet for exactly 5 seconds, then walked it straight to the trash chute. The entire arrangement tumbled down with a satisfying crash. I took a photo of the empty vase and sent it to the security desk at Silverwood. The name is Jordan Ward. Never let him through the gates. My new home was perfect. 3 bedrooms, a gourmet kitchen, and a backyard that overlooked a private lake. For the first time in decades, I had a space that was entirely mine. That evening, my phone rang constantly. Jordan, Camille, even Evelyn tried calling. I ignored them all. But I could see the security footage from my phone app. Jordan showed up at the gates the next morning, then again in the afternoon. By the 3rd day, he was there from dawn to dusk, begging the guards to let him through. The sight of him crying into the intercom almost broke my heart. Almost. A week into Jordan's daily gate vigil, I received an unexpected call. The name on my phone made my heart skip. Victor Hale. My ex-husband, Jordan's former stepfather. Lena? His voice sounded strained. We need to talk. Hello, Victor. It's been what, 15 years? Jordan showed up at my house yesterday. Lena, what the hell is going on? I sank into my favorite reading chair. What did he tell you? He was hysterical, crying, demanding to know if he was really my son. He forced me to take a paternity test, Lena. What was I supposed to say? My stomach dropped. You took the test? I had to. He wouldn't leave until I did. The results came back this morning. Victor's voice cracked. Lena, you know what they say? Of course I knew. Jordan wasn't Victor's biological child. He wasn't anyone's biological child. He was the abandoned baby I'd rescued from behind a bakery 28 years ago. He kept screaming about how you told him he wasn't your real son either. Is that true? I told him the truth, Victor. Something I probably should have done years ago. There was a long silence. Jesus, Lena. That kid has no one. He has the family he chose when he threw me out like garbage. Victor's call had shaken me more than I wanted to admit. When I checked the security cameras the next morning, Jordan wasn't at the gates. For the first time in 2 weeks, he was nowhere to be seen. I told myself I was relieved. No more daily reminders of my ungrateful son's existence. No more guilt every time I saw him sobbing into the intercom. But as the days passed, the silence felt strange. Jordan had been so persistent, so desperate. Where had he gone? I got my answer 3 days later when Jenna called, her voice tight with worry. "Mrs. Ward, you need to see something. Jordan's been all over social media." My blood ran cold. "What kind of social media?" "He started a live streaming channel. It's called The Mom Who Left Me. He's telling a very different version of your story." I hung up and immediately searched for Jordan's channel. There he was, sitting in what looked like a cheap motel room, his eyes red-rimmed and his hair unwashed. "My name is Jordan Ward," he said to the camera, "and I want to tell you about my mother, the woman who abandoned me after finding out I wasn't her biological son." My hands started shaking. The viewer count was climbing. 500, 1,000, 2,500 people watching him lie about me in real time. Jordan's live stream was going viral. The comments section was filled with sympathy for him and hatred for me. What kind of monster abandons their child like that? She raised him for 28 years, then threw him away? Evil. Someone find this woman and expose her. Jordan played the victim perfectly, tears streaming down his face as he painted me as a heartless woman who'd kicked him out the moment I discovered he wasn't my blood. He conveniently left out the parts about calling me dead weight, demanding I get a job as someone else's maid, and treating me like a burden. Within hours, someone had doxed me. My hotel, my new address, even my phone number were posted online. My phone rang constantly with angry strangers calling me every name in the book. The hotel manager called my room. "Mrs. Ward, I'm sorry, but we've had protesters in the lobby. For everyone's safety, you might want to consider checking out." I sat in my car in the hotel parking garage, watching Jordan's viewer count climb past 10,000. He'd found his audience, people who loved a sob story and hated successful women. But Jordan had made one crucial mistake. He'd declared war on someone who had both the resources and the evidence to fight back. That night, I created my own channel. So this is the mom who abandoned Jordan. My first video was simple. I sat in my beautiful new living room, wearing a calm expression and speaking directly to the camera. "Hello, my name is Lena Ward, and apparently I'm the worst mother in the world according to my son Jordan's viral stream. I think it's time you heard the other side of this story." I held up a document to the camera. This is the notarized will of Vivienne Sinclair, dated 5 years ago. She left me $8.2 million because, in her words, I showed her more love and loyalty than her own children. The viewer count started climbing immediately. Comments flooded in, but these were different from Jordan's stream. "Wait, she's rich? Why would she abandon her son if she's rich? Something doesn't add up here. Let her talk." I set the will down and looked directly into the camera. "Jordan told you I abandoned him because he wasn't my biological son. What he didn't tell you is that I rescued him as a dying infant from behind a dumpster. What he didn't tell you is that I sacrificed my marriage, my youth, and my health to save his life." I held up another document. These are his original medical records. Heart surgery at 6 weeks old. The doctor said he had a 30% chance of survival. The comment section exploded. My second video was harder to make. I had to relive some of the most painful moments of the past month, but the truth needed to come out. "Let me show you what really happened when I came to stay with Jordan," I said, holding up my phone. "This is a recording I made the night he told me to get a job as someone else's live-in maid." Jordan's voice came through clearly. "Mom, you can't just assume you can live here rent-free forever. Mrs. Henderson needs a housekeeper. It would be perfect for someone your age." Then Evelyn's voice. "There's a senior facility where residents can earn their room and board. Very dignified for someone in your situation." The comments were brutal, but this time they were directed at Jordan. He called his own mother dead weight. She saved his life, and he treats her like hired help? This kid is disgusting. I held up receipt after receipt, bank transfer after bank transfer. "Here's the down payment I made on Jordan's house. Here are 3 years of mortgage assistance. Here's the money I sent for his wedding, for Camille's engagement ring, for their honeymoon." By the end of the video, I was exhausted but vindicated. The truth was finally out there. My subscriber count hit 50,000 overnight. Jordan tried to fight back with a response video, but it only made things worse. He was clearly rattled, stumbling over his words and contradicting his earlier statements. "She's lying," he screamed at the camera. "Those documents are fake. She's rich, so she thinks she can just buy her way out of being a terrible mother." But the damage was done. Social media had turned against him completely. His own comment section was filled with people calling him out. "You're pathetic, dude. Your mom literally saved your life and you threw her away. I hope my kids never treat me like this when I'm old." The final blow came when I posted the adoption papers. Jordan's original name, Baby Doe number 3347. The hospital bracelet from when he was found. The police report from the night someone abandoned him behind Murphy's bakery. "I never had to save you," I said to the camera, my voice steady despite the tears in my eyes. I chose to. I chose to love you, to sacrifice for you, to give you every opportunity in life. And when I needed just a little kindness in return, you threw me away like garbage." Jordan went live one final time, and it was a complete meltdown. "I never asked to be saved," he screamed. "I never asked for any of this." The live stream was cut short when his internet provider shut off his service. Too many people had reported him for harassment. The aftermath was swift and brutal. Jordan's channel was permanently banned from the platform. My video exposing the truth had over 1 million views and thousands of comments supporting me. But I wasn't done. I'd contacted the best defamation attorney in the state, and we were building a case that would destroy Jordan financially and legally. "Mrs. Ward," my lawyer said during our meeting, "this is one of the clearest cases of defamation I've ever seen. He knowingly spread false information that damaged your reputation and caused you emotional distress. What are we asking for? $2 million in damages, plus a permanent restraining order preventing him from mentioning you online or in public." I thought about the scared little baby I'd found behind that bakery. The child who'd fought so hard to live, who I'd loved so completely. That baby was gone. In his place was a selfish, cruel man who'd tried to destroy me for his own gain. "File the papers." Within a week, Jordan was served. According to my sources, he'd been staying in increasingly cheap motels, burning through what little money he had. Camille had filed for divorce the moment his live stream went viral. Even his mother-in-law wanted nothing to do with him. He'd lost everything, just like he'd tried to make me lose everything. The court date arrived faster than I'd expected. Jordan showed up looking like a broken man, unshaven, wearing wrinkled clothes, his eyes hollow and defeated. My attorney presented our case methodically. The false statements, the damage to my reputation, the harassment I'd endured. Jordan's lawyer, a public defender who looked overwhelmed, tried to argue that his client was simply sharing his perspective. "Your Honor," I said when asked to speak, "I spent 28 years loving that man unconditionally. I gave him everything I had, asked for nothing in return, except basic respect. When I needed help, he called me dead weight and told me to work as someone else's maid." Jordan sat with his head in his hands, finally understanding the magnitude of what he'd done. The judge's ruling was swift and harsh. Jordan owed me $1.88 million in damages, money he didn't have. He was barred from mentioning me on any social media platform or public forum. He was forbidden from coming within 500 feet of my home or contacting me in any way. Furthermore, the judge said, "I'm ordering an investigation into the fraudulent claims you made regarding the property at 1247 Elm Street." Jordan went white. He'd forgotten that I had proof of my financial contributions to his house. The property investigation was even more devastating than the defamation case. I had documentation proving I'd provided the down payment, co-signed the original loan, and made mortgage payments for 3 years. Jordan's name was on the deed, but the house legally belonged to me. "Mrs. Ward," my real estate attorney explained, "since you can prove you provided the majority of the funding for this property, and since Mr. Ward is in significant debt due to the court judgment, we can legally reclaim the house." It took exactly 30 days. Camille had already moved out and filed for divorce, so the house was empty when the sheriff's department served the eviction notice. I drove by one afternoon and saw Jordan standing on the sidewalk, staring at the home he'd lost. He looked so small, so defeated. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for him. But then I remembered his words, dead weight. I remembered being told to work as someone else's maid. I remembered the humiliation, the betrayal, the complete lack of love or respect. I drove past without stopping. That evening, I listed the house for sale. Every penny of profit would go to the children's hospital where Jordan had his heart surgery as an infant. At least some good would come from this mess. Months passed quietly. I settled into my new life, enjoying the peace of not being needed, demanded, or taken for granted. My memoir was taking shape. The story of a woman who learned too late that kindness without boundaries is self-destruction. Jenna had become a friend, often stopping by for coffee and updates on her thriving real estate career. The commission from my 2 house purchases had changed her life completely. "You know," she said one afternoon, "people still talk about what happened with Jordan. Most folks think you were too generous with him." I'd heard the whispers around town. Some people thought I was cold for cutting off my son. Others understood that I'd been pushed too far. "Do you ever miss him?" Jenna asked gently. I considered the question carefully. I missed the child I thought I'd raised. I missed the son I believed I had. But the man who called me dead weight and tried to destroy my reputation? No, I don't miss him at all. That evening, a mutual friend sent me a video clip from Toronto. Jordan, disheveled and hollow-eyed, was ranting to anyone who would listen about his evil rich mother who abandoned him. Nobody was listening. He'd become one of those sad street corner prophets, yelling at the wind. I closed the video without watching it all the way through. I eventually sold both Silverwood properties and moved to a charming lakeside town 3 hours away. The cottage I bought was small but perfect, 2 bedrooms, a cozy kitchen, and a deck overlooking the water. For the first time in my adult life, I had no obligations to anyone. No one needed me to work, to sacrifice, to give until it hurt. I could read books, take walks, volunteer at the local animal shelter, and simply exist for myself. The town was small enough that everyone knew everyone, but big enough that I could maintain my privacy. People knew I was the woman from that viral story, but they respected my desire for peace. One day, while walking along the lake path, an elderly neighbor approached me. Her name was Rose, and she'd lived here for 40 years. "You're Lena Ward, aren't you?" she asked kindly. "The woman who raised that ungrateful boy?" I nodded, bracing myself for judgment. "Can I ask you something personal?" Rose continued. "Do you regret raising him, after everything he put you through?" I stopped walking and looked out over the peaceful lake. It was a question I'd been asking myself for months. "No," I told Rose, surprising myself with the certainty in my voice. "I don't regret raising Jordan. I regret not learning sooner that kindness without boundaries is self-destruction." Rose nodded thoughtfully. "That's wisdom that comes expensive, doesn't it?" "The most expensive lesson of my life," I agreed. We walked in comfortable silence for a while, watching ducks glide across the water. When we reached the end of the path, Rose touched my arm gently. "For what it's worth, I think you did the right thing. Some people mistake kindness for weakness, and they'll bleed you dry if you let them." That evening, I sat on my deck with a cup of tea and opened my laptop. The memoir was nearly finished. 400 pages of truth, pain, and ultimately redemption. I decided to call it Dead Weight, a mother's journey from devotion to independence. Chapter 1 began with the night I found a dying baby behind Murphy's Bakery. Chapter 35 would end with me sitting on this deck, finally free. I began typing the final chapter, my fingers moving steadily across the keys. For the first time in decades, I was writing my own story instead of living someone else's. The memoir took another month to complete. When I finally typed the end, I felt a sense of closure I hadn't expected. 28 years of my life distilled into words that would help other people recognize when love becomes exploitation. I'd already been contacted by 3 publishers after word leaked about the book. My story had resonated with so many people. Parents who'd sacrificed everything for ungrateful children, people who'd been taken advantage of by family members, anyone who'd ever given more than they received. The advance from Pinnacle Publishing was substantial. Not that I needed the money, but the validation felt good. My story would be in bookstores by next spring, just in time for Mother's Day. I thought about the irony of that timing. I'd spent 28 years being someone's mother, and now I was finally learning how to be myself. My phone rarely rang anymore, which was exactly how I liked it. No one demanding my time, my money, my energy. No one treating me like a resource to be consumed rather than a person to be loved. Sometimes, late at night, I wondered what Jordan was doing. Whether he was still in Toronto, still telling his version of events to anyone who would listen. Whether he ever thought about the mother who'd saved his life, who'd given him everything, who'd loved him unconditionally until he made it impossible. But those thoughts came less frequently now. Healing, I'd learned, meant letting go of people who couldn't appreciate your worth. 1 year after leaving Jordan's house with a single suitcase, I sat on my deck watching the sunrise over the lake. My phone buzzed with an email notification, something that used to send anxiety shooting through my chest. Now I checked it calmly. "Dear Miss Ward," the email began. "I'm Sarah Chen from Morning Light Publishing. We'd like to offer you a 3-book deal based on the success of your upcoming memoir. The advance is..." I read the number twice to make sure I wasn't seeing things wrong. 7 figures. They wanted me to write about financial independence for women over 50, about setting boundaries with family members, about finding your identity after a lifetime of caretaking. I set the phone down and laughed. Actually laughed out loud. The ducks on the lake looked at me like I was crazy, but I didn't care. For 63 years, I'd been the woman who gave. The assistant who anticipated every need. The mother who sacrificed everything. The helper who never said no. Now I was the woman who chose, who set boundaries, who put herself first without guilt or apology. My laptop sat open on the deck table, showing the final page of my memoir. In the distance, a loon called across the water, wild, free, and answering to no one. I opened a new document and began typing. Chapter 1. The day I learned to say no. For the first time in my life, my story truly belonged to me.